time zone you're in. Whew. It's been a hectic day. Played some games. My friend Javion. Got some groceries. Got some coffee. Ran back. Still trying to cool down a little bit. I've been playing a lot of Ecos. Cat. Oh my gosh, are you serious right now? Okay. Cat is trying to eat my plants that I just bought. Cat really enjoys eating my flowers when I purchase them. He's also not allowed on the counter, so I hear him jumping up there. You can't see him, but he's poking around looking for the stuff he knocked off. He's being naughty. Hello, Senior Bob. Did anyone post any inspirations? If you did, don't remember. Maybe earlier. Ooh. Senior Bob had posted a couple of days ago about using emotional baggage as a game theme. So it could be something that we play around with. And my robot leg. That's mostly what I've been talking about on Twitter. Cats, game inspirations, and being a cyborg. Yeah. You can stay in here and poke me as long as you're not eating the plants, because they're not good for you. Game Malodus says, I went on a shopping spree for all the fun stuff. New prescription glasses. Ooh. Plank vinyl flooring. Fun. And ingredients to make frog eye salad for this weekend's falconry meet. Hardest button to button. Hello. Saving plants stream. Saving plants from cats. Saving plants. Game biologist. That's a lot of really cool stuff. Frog eye salad. We talked about frog eye salad. I remember that. I remember that it wasn't made with actual frog eyes. And it looked tasty. For you go to the falconry meet? That sounds so cool. Hang out with falcons. Speaking of which, this is going to be a little gross what I talk about because it involves nature and animals doing the kinds of things that animals do. But I was walking to play games up in Capitol Hill today. The first thing I saw was a bunch of people clustered around on the sidewalk looking at something. I didn't really pay too much attention to it because people are weird sometimes. And then I saw a bird, but it wasn't like a normal sidewalk bird. It wasn't a pigeon or a crow or a raven or anything. I was like, that looks like a falcon. Definitely, it was small-ish, maybe like a little bigger than a pigeon, so it wasn't like a huge bird. It was definitely a predator bird. And I looked at its claw, and it was bloody. So at first I thought that the people were looking at this falcon, and it was injured, and they were trying to help it. Then I took another step, looked at the ground, and there was a pigeon that had been straight up murked. This pigeon was dead and just bloody with a giant claw mark right in its chest. So it must have happened just a second before. The people, I don't know, the people were trying to like catch the falcon or something. I don't know exactly what was going on. Somebody was holding a box. Maybe they're concerned about this. But the falcon was a little upset that people were impinging upon its meal. But yeah, I never saw that before. It's pretty intense. Just pigeon there, and then falcon kind of mad. Just like, can you just let me eat the bird? Because the pigeon was big too. It was almost the same size as the falcon. Falcon, I don't know. Game biologist, you probably know what kind of bird it was. better than me. And it was obviously too big. Like, the falcon couldn't fly away with this pigeon. I assume the intention was it, like, dive bombs it and then eats it right there, but it's in the middle of the street, so it was very strange. But kind of interesting in a naturey way, too. Maybe we can play around with that falcon attack. I wish right now one of my cameras was mobile, because the picture I posted online of Inigo in the Kallax cat box, he's back. It's like, if I had my phone, he's like down here. I can't get my camera down there, but he's down there looking at me. He's really cute. Senior Bob says, hey, so I was at the Protospiel this weekend. Nice. The game I thought was 90% done will be getting structure overhaul based on feedback, including a small publisher I know. Nice. Yeah, that's always fun. You know, you always are happy when the game is improving, but having to make big changes to something that you thought was done can be frustrating as well. Kimo just says, people be weird. Hawk was getting ready to nom on some sweet squab. Gotta leave it be. I know, everyone was kind of like getting in on the actions. Like, just let the poor bird have its noms. Save the pigeons. Also, for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, this is my game design stream. My name is Emma Larkins. This is usually how we start off the stream, with some chatting and brainstorming. I like to take notes while we're doing that, and sometimes scribble some stuff, and then we'll just see where the ideas go and flow and come up with some concepts for board game design ideas. And if you're working on anything or have any questions or have thoughts you'd like to share, feel free to chime in. I wonder if I could remember what this bird looks like. I don't think I can draw this. Yeah, because it had like the hawk. Oh, it had big claws. I remember that. Like, its two front claws were really big. And it was like gray and maybe a little bit white too. Hawk. Hawk is just my hawk or falcon. Just my generic term for bird of prey, a beast of prey. Yamada says, if we're around here, my first two guesses would be either Cooper's hawk or peregrine falcon. Cooper's hawk. Maybe. It doesn't look quite as fancy as that. Might have been a peregrine falcon. I feel like the head was a little differently shaped, though. Both are bird killers. Okay, both a little bigger than a pigeon. Both mostly slatey blue-gray on the back and a white cream on the belly. That sounds pretty close to it. Currently mulling an idea about how to structure a game-like activity around the Upgoer 5 challenge. Upgoer 5, what is that? It's a XKCD thing, looks like. The 1000 most used words. It's not very easy. Type in a box to try it out. Make ice cream using milk and sugar and ice. Cool it and shake the ice. Wow, you all should click on that link if you haven't checked this Upgoer 5 text editor. I just tried to explain ice cream, and it's a lot harder than you think. Ooh, Fong Odin says, how about Falcon races? I've had a few thoughts over the years for different types of racing games. From Game Jam a couple of years ago, I think I've mentioned this before, but I had because the prompts were racing and snails, maybe, and cheese. For this idea of a snail race, and you're racing in like a river of cheese. But it's a slow race. You're trying to be the last to get to the end, because the first snails who get to the end of the race get eaten. So it's slowest wins. You can play stuff like speed ups or move people into, or move other snails into different channels. And it's in a river of cheese, so the river of cheese is moving. These are very, very weird looking snails. Doop, doop. So every turn you have to move some number of spaces. Maybe some channels are faster. And then you're playing cards to do effects on yourself and other snails. I should look into that game. I always thought that was an interesting concept, but it's been on my back burner for a while. Reverse speed snail race. Last to the finish line wins. Doesn't get eaten. Different lanes. River of cheese. I wonder if that would be a little too weird of a thing to have the snails actually in a river of cheese. Nothing's too weird though, right? The weirder the better. Sure. Play cards for effects. Senior Bob says, I once saw a hawk sitting on a light pole that had 2 crows swooping around it trying to drive it off. The hawk clearly could not care less. Well, they probably had or were about to eat their eggs, right? Gameology says, speaking of bird races, every so often we end up getting a racing pigeon band collected from a peregrine falcon's nest box, and give the next box landlord contact info for the pigeon's owner so they can let them know the bird won't be winning any races. Oh my gosh. What is a racing pigeon? Okay, racing pigeon band. So a band used to mark a pigeon. But what the heck? Pigeon racing. Which is an actual thing. Okay, this is quite the rabbit hole. An actual thing. I learned so much just from this, pigeon racing. Of course, pigeon racing is a sport of releasing specially trained racing pigeons, which then return to their homes over a carefully measured distance. The time it takes the animal to cover the specified distance is measured, and the bird's rate of travel is calculated and compared with all the other pigeons in the race to determine which animal will return to the highest speed. Wow. Okay. This is cool. It's always interesting. My snail racing in the rivers of cheese isn't a real life thing, but the pigeon racing, that could be an interesting idea to base a board game off of. Like I always do, I just like to see what else is out there. Pigeon racing game. Pigeon racing pigeon. I'm not sure if you had a chance to check out the Pigeon Insider 2013 update. Oh gosh, I have to post this link. So it looks like people have explored the pigeon racing genre before. And then maybe game biologist, you could be the content expert. Okay. In Columba, you'll build dovecotes, breed pigeons, expand your territory, and avoid your opponent's falcons. Alright, pigeon racing. Release pigeons a measured distance from their home. time how long it takes to go home. So homing pigeon. This isn't a pigeon that you're sending somewhere. Like a messenger pigeon, right? Which I wonder how accurate that is. In media, sometimes they have the pigeon, right? And they're like, go tell Sally that the troops are coming. You have to wonder how they know where to go and how to get there. But in this case, seems like they know how to get home. How do they even know that? It's crazy. And I wonder, so I have some questions, right? If we're going to use this potentially for a game concept. Do all the pigeons have the same home? Are they released at the same time? Or do you just travel? Because wouldn't headwinds and weather and all sorts of stuff affect that? Falcons eat them. Should copy Gameologist note there. Because that could be an important part of this. It does look like there's a game, Columba. It's about breeding pigeons. Really popular game in 2012. And the pigeons getting eaten. Oh man. It'd be really cool with like really cool pigeon meeples. Okay, interesting. It's a really cool board. Hawk Falcon, snails, and rivers of cheese. So I don't want to read all of the notes here to clarify exactly how that works. Because it could work either way, right? All the pigeons. This is the pigeon home. All the pigeons live here. That seems a little weird because it was saying that people would buy racing pigeons. Maybe there's a pigeonary where all the pigeons are kept. Okay, if you notice here, Google is saying pigeonary is a word, so yeah. So all of the, what does a pigeon look like? Sure, it's got a beak. That's probably a little more accurate. Getting more and more bird-like. All the pigeons are trying to get home. Or if they had different homes. I'll just do circles. What does a pigeon look like? I feel bad now that I'm not accurately pigeon. Oh, just pigeon. I feel I'm not accurately representing the concept of pigeon with my art. Alright, they have long necks. Tail, and like a little weird foot thing, and then a little skinny beak. It's kind of pigeon-like. And it's got the wing banding. And a little dotty eye. But the city pigeons are usually pretty chunky from all the snacks that they get. There we go. Reference pigeon. Reference. Equals. So when I draw a circle, I'm drawing the pigeon. Okay, this is our key card here. So we have pigeons, each going to a different home. Oh, this could even be simple roll and move, or play a card and move. So thinking about how to differentiate this pigeon racing game, I don't think it would make sense thematically to, you know, change the wind, play a wind card on another pigeon. But maybe you can, you have predictions cards. You can gain future data. And play cards to respond. So there's going to be a wind gust. You might be able to research and find that out. And then you can play a rest your pigeon card or something to that effect. So I'm just going to write these down real quick before I forget them. Pigeon has a number of spaces to go home. Can gather data about weather, predators, etc. Slows you down, but you can respond to threats. To use a movement technique. Roll a move, play a card a move. Maybe something like the Formula Day dice. Threats, cards. Okay. Some fun thoughts there. River of cheese equals 90s mac and cheese commercial. I know, right? Fong Odin says, speaking of pigeons, something with messenger pigeons could be interesting too. Yeah, I know, right? I don't know too much about them, but it's a kind of, it has a mythos to it, right? Check out Odin's Ravens. Oh yeah, I love Odin's Ravens, an amazing game. I should play that again. It's been a long time, but definitely a good reference game and very, very interesting and unique style of a gameplay. Definitely recommend for anyone to check that out if you haven't already. It says, best part is that racing pigeons may end up taking a timeout in the middle of the race and just chill at someone's house for a couple of days. That's fascinating too. I guess that makes sense that this would take place over the course of days, right? So you're measuring how long it takes them to get home. It's not like 20 minutes. It's like 2 weeks. It's crazy. Okay. Now homing pigeons. You train a bird as to where its home is. You give one of these birds to your buddy who lives far away. Your buddy needs to let you know the hordes are approaching. They put the message on the bird who thinks it lives at your house and lets it go. So it flies home. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What if it forgets and thinks that... It seems a pretty unreliable form of communication. That's all I'm saying. Sidebar pigeon courtship rituals. I don't know too much about that. I'm going to have to look that up. Dovecote. Pigeon house. Coop. Okay. Excellent. Terminology is important. That's a good name, too. Maybe we'll use that as our stream title. Okay. Game idea the first. We have our first game design idea of the day, which is great and fun. Kimona says, now I feel like I need to tell you about rollers. Oh, jeez. All these words. I don't know. It's a breed that seizes while flying and is super attractive and tempting for hawks looking for prey. Roller owners hate hawks and are known for illegally killing hawks to protect their domesticated fowl. Seizes while flying? Like, has a seizure? This doesn't seem very effective for racing. Fong Odin, how about a distraction? Yeah. So one potential thing is you can predict whether things are going to happen and play cards to mitigate that, or yeah, play distractions on the other Pidgeos. Tasty food, mates, maybe, predators. Sam Bob says, have you heard of the yellow game Tortoise and Hare? It's also a racing speculation game. I've not. I'll have to check that one out. Tortoise and Hare. Tortoise. Tortoise is such a cool word. Tortoise. Tortoise and Hare. Yellow. The box looks familiar. Bet on a good animal. Don't forget, nothing is served by running. You must leave on time. Okay. Yeah, this might have some connection to the things I am thinking of. Falcons make a pigeon go faster up to a point. Yeah, that could be... I mean, I don't know if I want to make a game where you actually eat the other pigeons. And then you have player elimination, right? So you can make it more more... I don't want to say kid friendly, the general audience friendly. Falcons have a chance to speed up an opponent's or your pigeon. But can also make you have to, or make your pigeon have to hide. See, that's just, they're just gonna go into hiding. You're just gonna take a nap. Statues could just distract a pigeon. Yeah, you could. It's like, oh, I had to poop on that. Statues. Perfect. Some roller info. Pigeon fanciers are an odd lot. Sort of like extreme dog breeders, cat breeders, and chicken breeders. Wow. It's a fascinating world. I mean, themes, what I love about themes like this is I feel like so many of them are underserved because these are the kind of things when someone tells you about it, or you're flipping through the television channels and you see a show, or you see a movie that's a spoof movie that's been made about these things. Or like one of my fellow designers is working on a game with cats and told me about the cat conventions. I didn't know that cat conventions were a thing, right? If I had thought about it, I'd say like, oh sure, there's probably a convention for everything. But there are serious cat conventions. People bring cats, people meet celebrity cats, people buy cat stuff, so... And that's just fascinating, right? There's so many things, activities, hobbies out there that would be fun to make board games about. Oh my gosh, a little cute pigeon couple. They're so cute. Thank you for visiting Palomacy, pigeon and dove adoptions. Aww. It's pigeon diplomacy. Oh gosh, they're cute. This one's cute. Oh, little burbs. Are they called rollers because they're kind of roly-poly? Because that's pretty cute. Cool. I'm just looking at... I'm going to fall into a pigeon rabbit hole now. Got to stay focused. Making a game. Coming up with some game design ideas. And I like this. Again, I did a little bit of research, seeing what other kinds of pigeon games out there, just because I like to do that kind of thing. Doing enough research that I feel a good chance I'm not completely replicating something that's happened before. So it looks like there's maybe at least one complex pigeon game out there. So this racing game, keep it a little bit lighter, do a fun movement. Let's see the movement technique: roll and move, play a card and move, form the deep dice, use a spinner. Pay for movement with a certain number of actions. Got to talk to Jeff and Isaac about their building blocks of game design. I should know the book is actually called Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design, right? That seems right. Yes. Nailed it. Yes. Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design. We were talking a little bit about this and how they break down all the different mechanics, and I think it's a very useful thing when you're working on games. Not so much when you're just starting out, because just getting started, you know, whatever comes, just play around with things, don't worry too much about what's come before. But once you start getting into it a little bit more, you can think of categories of games or style of game you want to do. Like, I want to make a deck builder, I want to make a racing game. And having played some games, done some research about that kind of thing, you can think of, like, I can immediately think of 4 or 5 different ways. If you have a track with a number of spaces that you're moving along, how do you move along those spaces? And make it fun and interesting. You know, just doing... The nice thing about having discrete spaces like that is you can count them off. So you can use something like a dice. Probably the simplest type of movement. Is that the simplest type? Maybe if you just said, I am moving 4 spaces. Yeah, just saying how many, I'm going to move all of the spaces. But yeah, roll a dice. Dice, this has been around for a long time as a board game mechanic. It's pretty straightforward. There's not really any control over that kind of movement, so for modern game design, you usually want to have something a little more strategic, or something where you at least get to make a choice. Play a card and move. So this is Candyland, is one of the original games that did this. For Candyland, you're just flipping the top card off the deck, and you still don't have any control or choice. But there are other ways that you can play a card. I always forget what this game is called. Pharaoh. Egyptian themed board games. Egyptian family board game. I've looked this up before. It was one of the recent Spiel des Jahres nominees, or winners. I think it won the Spiel des Jahres. You have a hand of cards with 5 cards. When you get you have to play a card on your turn. You can only play a card from the outside. So you have, even though you have 5 cards in hand, you only have 2 choices. So A or B, right? It's a very straightforward choice. Not a lot of things to consider. So you play a card, do movement or other actions, and then when you get the new card, you put it into the middle. So it pushes the other cards out towards the sides. So you do have some controls. Like, well, if I play a card on this side, it's going to make this be my next option. So with making pretty simple choices, you do have a lot of options. Or even just having a handful of movement cards. There's a lot of ways to play around with that. With Formula Day, you have dices of different sizes depending on what gear you're in. And then there's a lot of mechanics that go into shifting up, shifting down, choosing which dice. So you don't choose how many spaces you go, but you choose a category of spaces. Here's another fun one I just thought of. I don't know if it's a mechanic that's been used in games before, but it sounds like something I've seen or heard of before. Bidding. Yeah, so we're doing a very deep sidebar on different movement strategies, which is for since we're talking a lot about racing games, I think it's a very interesting component of racing games, and even just picking innovative movement strategy or taking a movement strategy and tweaking a little bit, that can be a very interesting core of the game. You don't even have to put too much more on that to make a fun game, because racing is such a powerful, popular mechanic. It's something just push your luck about moving along a track, something very visceral that people really connect with. So I'm thinking betting bidding. I'm thinking of a movement style where each player bids a number of spaces. The player who bid the highest their pigeon, so there'd probably be a limit on this, a number of spaces, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 or whatever. Maybe the highest, their pigeon gets tired. Maybe 2 to 6. Then only moves 1 space. Adding a bidding. I don't know the right term for this. 'Cause betting, I feel like, is up your ante. But yeah, a little bit of push your luck element to it. And it's pretty intuitive for people. You just pick a number, really. I was playing the World Championship Russian roulette game on the Gen Con stream. Gen Con badges are live and available for purchase. We did a stream on early Sunday morning to chat a little bit about that. We played a game and we're available for questions. Super fun. World Championship Russian roulette is one of the games we played, and it had a little bit of that. You had the number of cards and you were playing them, trying to say you could get this many clicks before you got a bang. Which could also potentially be modified to be a movement strategy. Anyways, long story short, there's a lot of different options. I think it's good to think about all the different ways you can move a number of spaces and choose the one that's going to work best for your game. And that's even thinking about it in a very discrete, what is the math term for this? Not decimal. Whole numbers. Yeah, there's a term for that. So like moving a number of spaces, but I don't know if this really works for a racing game, but there's the Onitama style movement where you can move as many spaces as you want up until you get to a gate. Sorry, not Onitama, Takedo. Onitama on the brain. Move as many spaces as you want up until a stopping point, but you get benefits from stopping multiple times. So it doesn't really, it's another movement strategy, but it doesn't really feel like racing, because you want to stop as many times as possible because you're trying to collect a bunch of stuff. And that's an interesting experience of how, depending on how you move, your game can feel very different. Or there could be, for minis games, right, you just have no discrete spaces. You have, paths that you can go down, and you're using a unit of measurement. I'd say I move 6 inches, but you can only move in one direction. So if you overshoot, you have to go back. No discrete spaces to move into. Use a measuring device. So for this kind of thing, It definitely favors players who have a good visual sense, who can kind of look at something and say, oh, I know that's 2 inches, 3 inches. That's what's nice about discrete spaces as a movement type, because it tends to be a little more accessible. Yamada says, timeouts are usually caused when a pigeon needs to make a pit stop for food and water. Okay. So so you follow the pigeons? Strength and fitness can affect the speed of individual birds. Different breeds may have different values of stamina. Ooh, nice. Asymmetric, sweet. Figure out how often when to collect more food, water, so the bird doesn't overexert itself. So this is actually really cool for a racing style game, because usually in the racing games I've played, they're very fast. Like, the whole thing is just like, get there as fast as you can. So a more like a marathon. Is there a marathon board games? That's a good question. Marathon board game. Marathon, or even longer, like a cross-country race or a multi-day race. Balancing resources with resource gathering. So having a resource gathering element to it could be cool. Resource gathering with getting to the finish line first. See, I'm envisioning this as a deck builder. I make this joke every stream. I don't know, everything can be a deck builder. Deck builders are great. Fun story. Played Candyland for the first time last week. Oh wow, a design group meetup as part of an escape room puzzle. Interesting. We failed horribly at figuring out how to play it. Nice. The whole escape room took 1.5 hours and contained 5 games. Figuring out Candyland took us half an hour. Yeah, I can see that. Have you played Camelot? I haven't played it. I've read through the rules, so I have a pretty strong sense of how it works. But yeah, the bidding element, that's really cool. Game Out says, picked up my Gen Con badge yesterday. Very nice. Finally got the okay to be able to get a trade day badge. Super fun. I'll be seeing you again this year. Should be fun. Whole numbers equals integers. Thank you. I don't know why this is so hard for me. Yeah. So anyway, here's an idea. Players have their own cards with numbers 1 through 6. Each player chooses a card and places face down. A d6 is rolled. If your card is less than or equal to the result, you remove that many spaces. If you over, then something bad neutral happens. Ooh, man. You see, this is what's so cool about knowing the different movement styles. There are a lot that already exist or have been used before, but you can riff on them and modify them and come up with just a slight change can up the fun and intensity of it without necessarily increasing the complexity too much, where I don't want to make a mechanic that's very hard to figure out, but I think that makes sense. If I play, yeah, if I play a 6 and then a 6 is rolled, I move 6 spaces, right? So it feels very natural for what is safe, what is risky, and then it has enough randomness to it that, you might win mostly based off good luck, which is good for this sort of a weight of a game that we're thinking about here. Don't forget about imaginary numbers. Oh gosh. Some of that use Diamonster style bidding with cards numbered 1 through 5 or 6. Tied bids turn into birds on timeout. The rest move in rank order based on the cards played. Yeah. Diamonster. This is not one that I've played around with. Diamonster is cool. I'm going to use this as a reference. And it's making me really want to work on a game that has movement or racing games. There's so much fun stuff to play around with. Fun long distance race idea. Man against horse. Wouldn't the horse just win? There's gotta be a trick to it. Huh. Man against horse. So this, when you said this, I was thinking, oh, you know, back in the day, but they actually have it every year. So this one's from 2019. How would the horses not just win, though? 12, 25, and 15-mile ultra run and endurance ride. I guess because there's a human on a horse, so maybe you get tired as a human on the horse. Still seems hard being the human racing. I want to have more of an explanation. It's like, how does the horse not just win every time? Cool. Seems like we've gotten a good framework there for our Dovecote game about pigeon racing. That's gonna be the fancy name, right? Where no one actually knows what it's about. You're like, it's about racing the pigeons. Okay, this article should help with it. Man against horse, it explains the logic behind it. Nice. I find so much good information here. I want to just go and read all these articles, but I will wait till after the stream because we're coming up with ideas, game ideas here. Yeah, racing is a very fun concept for board games. I think it's a type of game that translates pretty well to board game format, although digital formats, racing games are also very fun, very different, of course. I think we have a good amount of material here for a potential pigeon racing, bird racing game. Having to take breaks, collect resources, have an interesting movement strategy, potentially some data gatherings. You can play cards, maybe a competition for playing things, distractions on others, or maybe just on the board. See, maybe play distractions. Oh, no, I have play distractions. Or the distractions are just already on the board, and you have to plan your movement so you don't get silent into. I'm also going to put catch-up mechanic on here, because that is a thing with a lot of these games, and definitely the traditional roll and move, Chutes and Ladders, or whatever. If someone does get very lucky, they can get, I guess with Chutes and Ladders, there's different boards, but there's one chute that goes all the way back to the beginning, right? So there's always a feeling that you could get sucked back. But it definitely does feel, especially if you hit the same chute over and over again, the game can go forever. It's likely to go to conclusion, but there's definitely situations where it can just go on for a really long time. And there can be a frustration there, like the rich get richer, pulling ahead and having a lot of power and control. So doing something where modulating it a little bit to protect against someone just getting lucky over and over again and being 20 or 30 spaces ahead of everybody else. I like the resource collection, taking a break for food. Could be a good catch-up, not mechanic. Mechanism. And this could be the resource collection and taking a break, if you go too far, too fast, you get exhausted and have a consequence. Basically a negative feedback loop where push your luck if you are very successful. If you're very successful at playing your cards, you use up more energy. And then you could also have a benefit from resting a lot or going slow. So again, coming back to the tortoise versus hare thing. So maybe you get like an energy boost card or something. This is getting into the weeds a little bit about a potential design, but it's fun to kind of think some of that stuff. Seymour says, Emma reads articles, the stream. I could read them out loud. I mean, if I just sat here and read them in my head, it wouldn't be very interesting, but I could totally do that. I like reading out loud. Cool. Alright, we have our first game ideas. Pigeon racing. Pretty solid concept we have here. What's next? What else are we gonna design? We had some thoughts at the beginning of the stream. Emotional baggage, saving plants from cats, falcon attack, falcon races. Protecting yourself from falcons. Okay, apparently falcon racing is also a thing. Oh, that's pretty cool. So that's an interesting question, potentially, for falcon racing. How would a falcon racing game be different from a pigeon racing game? Not saying I'm going to say I have to answer here. I'll probably have to do some more research about the differences between the two. There's something to an outsider, right? Just switching out the type of a bird. How much is that going to change how the game actually plays? But really leaning into your theme and understanding your theme, you can come up with some subtle differences that really makes it feel like that kind of race. Even if you don't know too much about the thing outside of, you don't necessarily have to be an expert in the field to make a game about it. But knowing a few of the little details can make a richer game experience. Oh my gosh, this picture. Now I'm just seeing pictures of baby birds, and it's kind of great, but also distracting. Falcon race. The falcons stop to catch pigeons. Yeah, there's a hunting phase to it. Yeah, maybe we could play around with this. So, how might these be different? There's a hunting phase. Cultural differences. Differences between the hobbyists or professionals. Maybe there's professional falcon racing who pursue each type of racing. Locations would probably be different. I'm trying to read these articles, but they're all pay-gated. In the UAE, falcons undergo grueling training to win millions. Wow. Compete for $7 million in prizes. Dang. That's crazy. We can do more research about that in the future, but so there's a fun bird racing. This isn't just the board game design stream, this is the bird racing facts stream. Hope you're in for the bird racing facts. Alright, how about, what do we do? Emotional baggage, saving plants from cats. It makes me think, I saw when I was at IKEA the other day, they have the pie protector domes, right? Pie protector, or cake, kind of thing that you put on a cake in a fancy display to keep the cake fresh. They had plants in it, so it makes me wonder if it was an actual thing made specifically for households with cats. Especially for the air plant, which was the saddest and most brutalized victim of the cat attack situation. I wanted to get it. It seemed like a fun thing to get, but I was also concerned that it could be more dangerous for having the cat so desperate to get into the glass container with the plant in it. They might take on desperate measures, knocking this glass onto the floor so they could have the plant. I must have this plant. Because with the air plant, we put it way above the door to the balcony in a place the cats have not gone up into before or since. But they made it up there to get to that plant. For some reason, that one in particular just made them so mad. Fezzik in particular is like, I must murder that plant. Plant murder. I don't know if this is game related, but I just really like the idea of putting little glass cases for all these plants. Have a spider plant in there. They would probably murder a spider plant, so that would be good. Have a little cactus in there, because I don't want them eating the cacti, right? I find it so aesthetically pleasing as well. It would be a fun board game component. Probably wouldn't do it in glass, but just having these little plastic cake protector domes as a board game. Glass cake dome? There's gotta be a term for it. Cake dome, I guess. Or a tray. Sometimes it's a wooden tray that comes with a dome that goes down on top of it. Doesn't have to be about plants. Maybe it could be about cakes. They're just called glass domes. Okay, that works. Cake trays. Cakes on display. Plants are great. I love having plants, but thinking about organizing your cake display, that's fun, especially if you have the components. There are actually little cake trays and little cake meeples and little domes that go down on top of them. Oh, okay. I don't know about you, but I'm actually very excited about this idea. Component-wise, I don't know how financially sound it would be, but you just have a bunch of trays, maybe of different sizes, and then you have your domes. And your cakes, maybe you just have individual slices for some. It's got frosting in the middle, yes, a little flour on it. Maybe you have a whole cake. Maybe you have a cake, one slice taken out. Because then you know it's the good cake, right? Like, oh, if someone's already bought a piece of that cake, it must be tasty. Right. Game idea the second. Cakes on display. You are a baker at a cake convention, bake sale, trying to make your cake display the best. player with the most attractive cake display wins. So the heart of this concept I'm just coming up with is all the really cool components. Cake stands, cake tray, glass domes. I just want to have fake food too, just like really nice cake bits, cake meeples. Because I'm thinking the resin, the cast ones, you can make something really cool with that. But you can even do wooden meeple. Oh my god, now I think I look on Meeple Source. Meeple Source cake meeple. I'm sure they have something. Wedding favor sets. Alright, search. Cake. Okay. Wait, what? Oh, they're like 3/4 display. Okay. So there's not a ton of cake meeples. There should be more cake meeples. Cake slice, full cake meeples. So many different things you could do. Or maybe each of the cakes is made up of slices, and you can get a whole cake, but you're collecting them one slice at a time. Cakes are in slices. You can get a full cake, but you're one slice at a time. First, you need the stands, then the cake. You can get a bunch of bonus points for getting a dome, or you can only score your cake if you have a dome. So a little bit of push your luck where, oh, I've only gotten 3 slices on this tray. It's not maximum points, but I want to cover it before the game ends. Otherwise I won't get any points on it. This tray, but I want to cover it before game ends. As a sidebar, I like coming up with game ideas. Sometimes I can tell a lot of the flavor of the sort of a game that I'm going for if I type out or write down what someone playing the game is thinking or feeling in the moment, because that's very evocative, right? There's a lot that's communicated in the one sentence. I'm collecting slices. I have multiple slices on a tray. The game is ending. There's a little bit of push your luck element to it without necessarily writing out all those different things. Get a full cake bonus if you have all the slices of the same type of cake. Maybe some cakes take 4 slices, some 6, some 8, so it could be different round size. It would be a little tricky with the meeples, but if they like fitting together cake component meeples, little frosting inside of it. Oh, excuse me, I got too excited. Too excited about cake meeples. I mean, who wouldn't? And having a little tiny, doing like a tea party, having a little tray that goes down on top of it. Ooh. Maybe you have different size trays that cost different amounts. So you get one that just holds a single slice. And maybe it has a pattern on it that shows how many it holds, different sizes of cake. Trays hold different number of slices. So how would you be acquiring these cake slices thematically? Like you're making a cake display, you're acquiring cake slices one at a time. Doesn't feel super thematic because you just buy. Most thematic way. Characterize the cake slice acquisition. Maybe you're at a party. I don't know if that makes sense. Where do a bunch of different people get together and make displays? I mean, at a convention or a fair or bake sale, it doesn't make sense you're acquiring cake by the slice. I'm not sure the answer is that. I don't know how thematic it has to be, if it's fun. It's always worth kind of thinking about that and delving into it. Have a little bit of foundation there. Kimo says, I've never had a problem with a cat eating plants. Seraphine sometimes thinks she's a paper shredder, never interested in plants. Depends if they're indoor or outdoor, too, I think. The indoor cat's definitely a little more interested. Go full Jen Sander Cock style and require an actual cake for the game, also a cat. Yes. Must have cat to play. I love it. Cake foragers. Ooh. I don't know if that's the same as So Much Fun Hunt. I don't know if that's this game, but I really like that as a title. Yamash says, my mom once forged a cake. Okay, cake. Oh, cake forgers. I was thinking cake foragers. No, cake forgers does work pretty well for this. But cake foragers, scrounging for cake. I don't know what that would be, but that's a fun idea too. Forged a cake was a birthday cake, and she just turned over a cake pan and frosted and decorated the outside of it. Took the very polite recipient a couple of tries cutting into it to accuse her of skullduggery. Oh. So she didn't even actually make a cake? That's cruel. It's like a totally thing. Oh my gosh. Today's the day that the Trivial Pursuit pie wedge becomes a cake slice. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. It's genius. Genius. This is a good idea for prototyping. Just get some old copies of Trivial Pursuit. Emma chokes on water stream. Choking on water and reading articles online. There's so much room for fun activities. Carroll County Cake Swap. Yeah, that's in Maryland. I used to live in Carroll County. Is this the same Carroll County? Yeah, I think it's based on the place where I used to live. Yeah. Wedding cake tasting challenge. You get cake by the slice with every slice being different. I do like that as well. I mean, this game could be anything as long as there's slices of cakes, and slices of cakes are the most important thing. Preferably the little domes, but I could be flexible on that depending on how difficult it is to acquire those. It's in your mom. Oh my gosh, you can't. Assembling a whole cake from partially eaten cake slices. Yeah. There was a backup real cake. One doesn't toy with cake on. Okay. See, I'm really glad you clarified that, because I was going to be indignant. At first, I thought it was accidental. You turn the cake pan upside down and just forgot to take the pan off. That doesn't really make sense. But that is genius and devious and evil. I love it. Forge is cool. I was just riffing on Word Forge. Naming convention. Cake forgers. Could be medieval cake forged out of steel. Steel cake slices. Not very tasty. Froggers. Cake froggers. Cake slices. Not very tasty. Cake foragers. You have to go into the cake forest and collect cake slices from the trees, a la that creepy sequel to Wizard of Oz. The little buckets, the lunch pail buckets on the trees. I should watch that again. The movie's messed up. Very dark and traumatizing. So you're foraging for the cake, or you're foraging for cake in the city. Go from cake store to cake store. So this is, we're talking about foraging for cake, but this going to the cake stores might work for the Cakes on Display game as well. You and your friends are going to a bunch of cake stores and getting slices, competing to be the best. I don't know. I've been thinking about the thematics of that a little bit more. Also wanted to give some shout outs for recent followers. Fong Odin about an hour ago. Thanks for following the channel. And Lurkin2020 is also following. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you're enjoying the slightly goofy stream we're doing today with cake swapping. If you are just joining us, you might have missed our pigeon racing game ideas, which were also fun. That's fun stuff today. Wedding cake tasting challenge. Cake by the slice, with every slice being different. Yes, I said that. High fantasy concept. Okay, you forage the wild cake forests of the north, searching for ripe slices to pick and assemble into a full cake for your clan. I kind of love that. I love these ideas. You know, sometimes I think about whether it will make sense, but I feel you can hand wave a lot of stuff if it's just really fun and interesting, right? Like, you're foraging the wild cake forest. I think video games do this a lot. We're very tenuous connections to reality, but if you make it fun enough, it doesn't matter too much. Trying to make this full cake with these wild pieces of cake. Maybe you have to cure the cake slices, like curing meat. Maybe some of the cake trees are actually animals, and you have to fight for the cake. I don't know. It's silly but fun. I mean, just if it's a game idea, if you're explaining it to your friends who are interested in playing the game and they just laugh about how silly it is, I think that's good. I like to have games like that. BBC already posited the existence of spaghetti trees. I'll have to look into that. That seems cool. Slightly goofy is atypical here. Usually very serious. I know. Sometimes I'll call and be like, today's stream is pretty silly, but it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty much every stream. Make a pigeon cake out of live pigeons. Oh, like bake into a pie, the new magic card. Cake slices come in a thick rind that make it difficult to tell if they're ripe. And you have to husk them. Different techniques for acquiring the juicy inner cake flesh from the natural casings. You have to husk them, maybe you have to cure them so they're ready to eat. Maybe they have pits in them. Maybe some parts of the cake plant are poisonous. poison. Too many letters. Poisonous. And you have to avoid those. Maybe some cake plants are entirely poisonous. Yeah, you see, once you have an idea for making a game, just riffing on it and spouting whatever comes to mind, no matter how weird or goofy it seems, can help to get your creative juices flowing and inspire you to come up with something that really is interesting and works. Spaghetti trees? Spaghetti harvest in Ticino. That was before the spaghetti worm infestations in 1963 wiped them all out. All we eat now is artificial spaghetti grown from wheat. It's a tragedy that none of you will ever be able to savor the beautiful taste of a real string of spaghetti. This is actually fantastic. I'm not going to watch it now, but this is great. I have so much research material. I prefer free-range cake. Cake shrooms. This has made me think a little bit of Alice in Wonderland. Anyway, we talked multiple times in the past about how cool and fun mushrooms are. It'd be fun to work mushrooms into this. Maybe that's how the cakes grow. Maybe they grow in mushroom form out of the ground as opposed to hanging out of trees. I just love the imagery of that. Having your little cake bud coming out of the ground. And then the partially mature cake bud. Looks like a lamp. And the fully mature it sprouts little flowers on top of it. Fully mature cake shroom. So back to reality. If, well, cakes on display or cake foraging would be a game. We have a lot of pieces of the game here. To move forward on this design, what we would need would be acquisition. You know, how exactly do you gather the cake pieces? Are there currencies that you have to collect and spend? During the course of the game, are you making money and then spending it, or do you have other ways of acquiring the things that you want over the course of the game? So you can make money, spend it during the game. So maybe you're selling some cake slices and then acquiring cake slices. It could just be a cake selling game. That would be a little bit more normal, but with all the components, this would be fun. Acquiring slices and then selling them. The frosting grows last on the cake shroom, yeah. And then in this case, maybe you're acquiring full cakes with all the slices and selling them to customers. Win condition is money instead of best cake display. Kind of like those Diner Dash or that kind of a game. Or could there be a market/draft where you just take certain cake pieces every turn. You could be getting cards that let you take cake acquisition actions. Game Mother says big plastic cake tree that dispenses tiny cake slices, sort of like the ovaries in the period game do. Yeah! Got my copy of the period game. Haven't had a chance to crack it open yet, but I should, if only just to play with the pieces, because it has some really cool bits to it. So, excited to check that out. So a little bit of brainstorming about what exactly the game would look like. Because for some of these games, we do discuss thematics and a little bit about the game feel, but getting down into the nitty-gritty of how exactly the game plays is a crucial step before moving forward on prototyping. Sometimes something I don't necessarily, sometimes I get a little bogged down or almost bored with like, okay, it's gonna be this cool pigeon racing game, moving your pigeon pieces around, and they need to get food and they're tired. So from a high level perspective, it all sounds very fun. And sometimes translating that into something playable, it's not always as viscerally fun. So it's an important part of have the ideas and then figure out how the ideas are going to work. Because otherwise you don't have a game. You just have some fun brainstorms. Brainstorms are fun too. You can do that. Just come up with game ideas and then have other people go forth and turn them into real life. Okay. Looks like we got about 20 minutes left. I think enough time to look at one more game concept. We've got 2 pigeon racing and then cakes on display. A little bit of the cake foraging. It's a little bit more of a vague idea. Not sure. And just put cake in your bag. Have a big old sack and put cake in there. It works. Could be fun. I think we have time for one more brainstorm. I guess we didn't really do saving plants from cats because we got distracted with cake. Talk about that or talk about emotional baggage. As Senior Bob had mentioned on Twitter, that this could be an interesting potential game direction, but treating it with respect. Even just the word emotional baggage is a pretty fraught term. I feel like there's some way that you could play around with the concepts of that, but you definitely have to have a pretty gentle touch to make sure that you're being respectful to the topic. It depends how deep we want to get. If we want to just talk more about protecting plants or the weight of past emotions. Cake Forgers, the RPG for the entire family. Could be a role-playing game, yeah. Pandora's Box, emotional baggage. Role-playing, and then I slice off. Oh, this works great for me wanting to do a role-playing game that's based off of just going around to different restaurants and eating lots of different foods. So if a big part of the game is just talking about all of the tasty food that you have and what's so great about it, I think it's a very fun, exciting style of role-playing game. I'd say, so we studied a lot of Greek mythology when I was a kid, and Pandora's Box, I was just way too caught up in the functionality of it to really get the message. So the idea is, like, Pandora, I forget the whole story, but there was a box, and the gods, probably because you're the gods, told Pandora not to open the box. Pandora. And she did, and it turned out it was full of all the miseries and woes. I don't know why they were in there and why Pandora was entrusted with this box. Seems like an oversight. They all came out. Bad stuff. And got into the world, but then they managed to close the box before Hope got out. Which is weird. So, like, well, if all the woes were out in the world, wouldn't you want Hope to get out in the world as well? It's very... the subtleties of it is like, but that doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it make any sense? It's a parable, though, right? It's... And also just, like, don't give someone a thing and say there's bad stuff in here, don't look in it, and tell them not... And then... tell them not to look at it and just leave them there with a box. Why would you do that? It's temptation, right? Which I like is the theme. Okay, I'm starting to feel ideas coming together based off this Pandora's box idea. And again, push your luck. I feel like all of our ideas today are push your luck. It's a fun concept. So you're putting things in boxes, containers, or decks of cards, right? Across the board, making piles of things. Players eventually flip over a pile and get good and bad stuff. Phil and I did a Winston draft for the first time with our Magic pack since there was only the two of us. I'd heard of Winston draft before, playtested some games with having that as a mechanic. How it works is you have 3 piles of 1 card and then the deck of cards that you're drafting. It's how to make drafting functional for 2 players because otherwise it gets real weird. So functionally how it works is the player looks at the first card, either take it into their supply. If they choose not to take it, they take a card from the deck and put it on top of that pile. So the piles grow bigger over time. And you kind of choose whether you want to let a pile ride, whether you want a really good card. Functionally very interesting. Playing it feels very interesting. So even if you know how it works, you should try it because it feels different. It's harder than I thought it was going to be. But kind of this idea of what is in this pile. Do I want it? Should I let this pile ride? What are in those other piles I haven't looked at yet? Opportunity cost of not looking at some of the piles that I lose out on actions, say, if I look at too many piles. So the core of the game is looking at just the right number of piles. I don't know if that's exactly right for this idea of a Pandora's box game, but something along those lines. And then everything in the piles is bad? Not sure. The container mentioned in the original story was actually a large storage jar, but the word was later mistranslated as box. Modern times, an idiom has grown from it meaning any source of great and unexpected troubles. Or alternatively, a present which seems valuable, which is in reality is a curse. Like a monkey spot, right? Alright, so when Prometheus stole fire from the heavens, Zeus took vengeance by presenting Pandora some presenting Pandora, presenting Pandora box, presenting Pandora to Prometheus's brother. Pandora opened a jar left in his care containing sickness, death, and many unspecified evils which were released into the world. Though she hastened to close the container, only one thing was left behind, usually translated as hope. To open a Pandora's box, meaning to do or start something that will cause many or unforeseen problems. I don't know if that's exactly where we're going with it yet, but as a inspiration for design, I think there's a lot of cool potential stuff there. Ooh, I like this as a mechanic, Senior Bob. Pass a box of awesome resources around, but if it gets empty, something bad happens. Also reminds me a little bit of the Mafia de Cuba game. Yeah. It's at Cuba where you're passing around a box that has the boss's diamonds in it and then rolls and other stuff. And some of the diamonds are going to be taken out of it. And the boss is trying to hunt down who stole their jewels. Another game that's kind of good stuff taken out of a box. And box is fun. Mafia de Cuba is nice because the whole game fits inside the box and then you play the game from the box. Having an extra box in a game or a lot of boxes can be a little bit tricky. So having decks of cards to simulate boxes can be a nice way to get around that. Simulate the boxes. I'm getting parched. I'm out of water. It's so dry. Okay. It's a fascinating idea. Pandora's box. Pandora's box. Pandora's box. Pandora's boxes, maybe? I'm not sure exactly how to translate having all bad stuff. Like, why would you choose to go into any of these piles if they're all bad? So maybe Pandora's box isn't, but I really want to use that. Like, how to make it... How do you encourage people to want to look in these piles if they have pestilence and death and stuff in them? That's why it seems so compelling. An idea. Oh, there is a Pandora's box board game. It's just a jar that has stones in it. Okay. This game is unpublished. It's an abstract game, so I don't know if that's exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm stuck up on this idea. Again, maybe it's just the idea of piles of cards, and you're putting stuff in the piles, and you're looking at the piles, maybe moving the piles around. I like this idea as a mechanic. It doesn't necessarily have to be Pandora's box themed if that doesn't work out. Then maybe you're a demon who wants bad stuff released into the world. Maybe it's Pandora's box. I like this. Feels like a puzzle that needs to be sussed out. Not exactly. Maybe there's good stuff. In the piles that you release. Maybe it's a cooperative game. Where you have to look through the piles to get a certain amount of good stuff. But there's mostly bad stuff. Oh man, a cooperative game that just each card has different effects. The Pestilence makes you draw fewer cards, and Craziness where you have to draw from a random pile. What were the actual things in Pandora's Box? 'Cause Pestilence was one of them. Why would they put Pestilence or Sickness, I guess? Why would they put Sickness in the jar in the first place? Why put that in a jar? It just seems dangerous to have that lying around. Yes, there's no death before this. Insanity or memory loss. Have to pick from a random pile. So there's just some placeholder ideas for different cards that do different things. Yeah, this one you're trying to sift through the detritus. Detritus. Get the few gems. Again, not necessarily specifically Pandora's Box themed. I'm not sure exactly how that would work out, but using Pandora's Box as an inspiration for a mechanic, you know, just a flavor that would work with this mechanic that I'm suddenly enamored with. It could have a board with a bunch of empty spaces, which are the boxes. Probably look fancier than this. This is just a rough sketch. Boxes where piles go. Decks or piles? I'll say piles. Putting stuff into the pile. So for the actual mechanics, the things that we would do with these cards, things you do with piles, put cards in them, move them around, shuffle them, maybe, look at them. Okay, well, here's another idea. Again, just talking about this is starting to make the ideas flow. Like with the snail racing game, last snail wins for not being eaten. What if the person with the fewest woes released, or the least bad woes released, is the winner? You are a gaggle of Pandoras. Opening boxes willy-nilly. It's like, this is so silly. Okay. You win by being the Pandora who does the least damage to the world. Eventually, the hope card is found. And the game is over. So it's got a natural end condition to it. Cards have effects you can play. Also are worth points or with negative points. Or you want the fewest tragedy points. Points are tragedy points, and you don't want any of those. Like stub toes is 1 tragedy point, and death is 50 tragedy points. I just like that, you know, Pandora's running around, opening up all these different boxes. You kind of sneak stuff into other Pandora's boxes. It also makes me feel a little bit of my, it feels a little bit mechanically like my game Heartcatchers, which I like. You're just putting stuff into the boxes. That feels very much like Heartcatchers. Yeah, if I put something into my box, maybe each person has a spot for their box, and you're putting stuff into other people's boxes and swapping the piles. Maybe swapping the piles in the boxes. Try to trick someone by putting good stuff in their box to make them swap. So it wouldn't be good stuff, it would be less bad stuff. That was funny. That's so funny. Pandora's box shop. Ooh. I think that's an inspiration. You need boxes of certain sizes, but they come with bad stuff in them you need to deal with. The Pandora's box story just seems like an Eve being tempted in the Garden of Eden story. Loss of innocence. Yeah, I think it is very similar. It might have even had the same inspiration, or they might have been woven together over time. Because it is this idea of, I mean, it's a very interesting idea historically, right? There was a perfect time when people lived forever and everyone was always healthy and everything was beautiful and perfect, and at some point there was a fall from grace. So all of the suffering, pain, and sickness, and old age, and death, these were things that happened to us, that they were our own fault. I don't know why they came up with that mythology. Maybe people felt better because they had some control, and maybe if we caused it, we could fix it. Or again, maybe it's just a religious thing to put people in the places. Say people are inherently evil because we make bad stuff happen to ourselves. I don't know. It's all very strange, but... Box shop. Cool. This has been a good stream. We have 3 pretty solid potential ideas. Pandora's box. This really came together. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out, but I could see this being a thing with piles. Pretty simple. Putting worse and better stuff, hiding it around the board, moving decks around. It's going to be pretty straightforward, pretty fun. Pretty fast. Just like Heartcatchers, 5-10 minutes. But maybe a little more complex than that. Then up here, the cake. Making cake displays. This one just has really cool components. I'm not sure how the actual gameplay would be or how fun it would be, but just arranging your cake slices on a tray and then putting a dome on top of it, it just seems fun. It's playing, right? Even if it isn't very mechanically complex. Just the motions you're doing with the components seem very fun. And then first but not least, we had our pigeon racing game. Pigeon racing is a real thing, it turns out. Came up with a lot of fun research about the wiki article, pigeon racing. I need to delve into that because apparently it's a huge thing and all sorts of fun details you could potentially make a game out of over the course of many days. Sometimes the pigeons just go and take a break for a couple of days. They need to get food and water. Push your luck with choosing an interesting movement technique for our pigeons, and then a little bit of resource management. Maybe they get tired if they push too hard, give a little bit of a catch-up mechanism. Maybe if you go slower, you get a burst of energy. So yeah, racing game. We have a racing game, maybe like a set collection game here, and then I don't know, bluffing, I guess this, like, what is Heartcatchers? A little bit of bluffing, I I guess that's really the main mechanic. Maybe a memory element for a little bit of memory stuff in here. It's just a light, fun family game as well. Awesome. And for cakes on display, we have a couple of potential good titles. I mean, any of these could be a great title for the stream. Yeah, very handy, very useful. All these great things that we came up with. Hopefully you feel as inspired as I do with all these ideas. Love coming up with new potential ideas for board games or digital games, you know, if that's the format that you like to work in. This is mostly what we do here on the stream, is just coming up with ideas, working on brainstorming, riffing off of each other to be inspired. If any of these ideas inspire you, feel free to run with them, because we come up with way too many ideas in this stream to possibly ever make games for all of them. So it's more just a collective brainstorming and feel fun and creative sort of a situation. If you ever want to tell me about the things you're working on, this channel is a great place for that, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Emma Larkins on most platforms. Always like hearing what people are up to. We also have a gaming stream on Thursdays. We usually play just some casual limited Magic on MTG Arena. Phil and I hang out and talk about stuff, and I'm here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. PST. I should be back next week. I don't have any more knee appointments that I have to go to. That is too far in the future. It's gonna be February next week. What? Yeah. Should be back here next week chatting. If you like what you see here, you can follow or subscribe to the channel. If you have Amazon Prime, you can get Twitch Prime and subscribe for free, which is super fun and helps me keep this going. If you have any thoughts or comments on what's happening here, always love to hear that. And I will see you next week after I check in on Senior Bob's comment here. Random question. You know Adam Coble, who's also unlockable level for that Kickstarter? I don't, actually. I know John, who is running the Kickstarter, but I don't know Adam Coble, but he seems like a really cool person, just looking at some of the stuff. Let me see if I can... Kickstarter... Pineapple. Are we... Oh, we're so close. If you haven't seen this yet, actually, before I go, I do want to call this out. On Kickstarter, the game being... Kickstarter being run by Jonathan Ritter-Roderick, who is part of Laywaste Games. Laywaste, obviously, had a lot of really awesome Kickstarters. This is something that John specifically is doing. The game is called Pineapple, a Visceral Truth or Lie game. I've already been unlocked on this as a designer on the game. I'm going to design some stuff. This Adam Coble, creator of Dungeon World. Don't personally know this person, but they seem really cool. Next is Jen Ellis and Keith Baker, still need to be unlocked, who done Illimet, Action Cats, Adventure Zone, and of course Eberron. So only like 40 more bucks to unlock them, so you should definitely check that out. Seems like a lot of fun stuff, and you can get a gold, $19.75, perfect. $25 to unlock Jen Ellis and Keith Baker. It's a fun game, truth or lie with a spin to it, and you can get a gold pineapple, I think. Oh wait, you can't get the gold pineapple anymore. Yeah, John's looking at some more cool rewards, but the game itself is also cool, so definitely check that out. But yeah, that's enough for me. He does a lot of RPG stuff on Twitch. He's pretty entertaining. It's cool. I should check him out then. I'm always interested to see more people doing fun stuff on Twitch. Alright. That'll be the end of the stream. Hope you had a fabulous time today. I will see you again in a couple of days. And until then, we can chat on Twitter. See you around and have a fun rest of your day.